The person in this picture is Mohammed Ashraf, also known as Rage. At the time of the incident, he was nearly 18 years old. You might want to take a good look at his face, because in the year 2035, he will be released from prison after serving time for a senseless reason, a chilling reminder that true evil exists. In 2019, somewhere in Egypt, Rage was a teenager from a well-respected family, most of whom were deeply involved in the education system. His relatives specialized in teaching, mentoring, and shaping young minds, instilling strong values and discipline in their students. However, despite growing up surrounded by educators and intellectuals, Rage did not adopt their principles or embrace the path they had hoped for him. Instead of following in their footsteps or striving for academic excellence, he chose to rebel against his family's expectations. He gravitated toward the wrong crowd, seeking excitement and a lifestyle far removed from the structured and disciplined environment in which he was raised. Rather than embodying the virtues of wisdom and responsibility, Rage embraced a reckless way of life, associating with people who led him down a dangerous path, one that made him more like a street thug than the educated young man his family had envisioned. Rage spent most of his time posting videos on social media, showcasing his reckless lifestyle and indulging in heavy drug use. Despite his violent nature and unpredictable behavior, many girls found him irresistibly attractive. He embodied the kind of danger and thrill that some admired, a rebellious figure who acted without hesitation, never fearing the consequences of his actions. His confrontations knew no boundaries. He picked fights with anyone, whether they were elderly individuals or young children, without a shred of remorse. The drugs warped his perception of reality, reinforcing his belief that everything he and his friends did was justified, that their actions were not only acceptable, but absolutely right in their own eyes. Fueled by this distorted mindset, Rage plunged deeper into a world of chaos, unaware of the inevitable consequences that lay ahead. Every time Rage caused trouble, his family stepped in to clean up the mess, either by using their wealth or leveraging their connections. This only emboldened him, making him even more reckless and difficult to control. Knowing that his actions would always be covered up, he had no reason to change, only to push further. With his growing social media presence, Rage became somewhat of a local celebrity, attracting attention from many people, especially young women eager to be associated with him. Among them was a girl from his neighborhood who caught his interest. She was drawn to his dangerous charm, and he, in turn, made grand promises, swearing to her that he would only talk to her and urging her not to believe the circulating rumors about him being involved with other girls. Of course, this was far from the truth, but she chose to trust him, until one day her friend exposed his lies. Showing her pictures of Rage with other girls, the friend shattered the illusion, forcing his girlfriend to confront the reality of who he really was. Angry and heartbroken, she confronted Rage, demanding answers. He defended himself, dodging accusations with practiced ease, but he allowed her to vent, not because he cared about her feelings, but because he was determined to find out who had betrayed him. When she finally revealed the source, her friend Rana, everything started to make sense. Rana wasn't just a concerned friend, she had history with Rage. She had once been his girlfriend, but their relationship had fallen apart after her mother opposed their involvement. Now she was the one exposing his secrets, shaking his world in a way he hadn't anticipated. Rage decided to wait for Rana on the street. The moment he saw her, he aggressively snatched her phone from her hands and erased all the pictures saved on it. His intent was clear: to destroy any evidence of his infidelity. This scene unfolded right in front of people in the street. However, no one stepped in to help Rana. They knew Rage was a violent person with no respect for anyone, and they feared the consequences of standing up to him. Rage's anger only grew as he hit Rana and threatened to throw acid water on her face. The crowd watched helplessly, but no one dared intervene. Amid this chaotic and frightening scene, there was one person who refused to stay silent, a brave 17-year-old named Mahmoud. Known for his well-mannered nature and academic success, Mahmoud was a role model in his neighborhood. He had always treated everyone with respect, regardless of who they were. Determined to stop the cruelty, Mahmoud stepped forward and spoke directly to Rage. "You need to leave her alone," he said firmly. "There's nothing manly about confronting a girl, especially one from the same neighborhood." Rage, who was used to intimidating everyone around him, didn't know how to react to Mahmoud's calm and defiant words. For a moment, he was speechless. It was rare for anyone to challenge him so openly. Embarrassed and frustrated, Rage finally let go of Rana. She hurried away and the crowd dispersed. Even though Rage had accomplished what he came for, his anger still simmered beneath the surface. Mahmoud's words had struck a nerve, leaving him feeling humiliated. But instead of reflecting on his actions, Rage chose to channel his frustration in a dangerous way. He walked away to meet up with his friends and get high, trying to bury the embarrassment and anger he felt inside. Later that night, as Mahmoud sat in his room, he felt compelled to post something online. "It's never right for a man to fight a girl," he wrote, hoping to remind people that true strength comes from kindness and respect. Rage, however, was too busy indulging in drugs to see the post immediately. But around 1 a.m., one of his friends called him. "Did you see the post Mahmoud put up?" the friend asked. When Ragay finally checked the post, he instantly knew it was aimed at him. The words cut deep, reminding him of his earlier confrontation with Mahmoud. His anger flared up again. How dare Mahmoud embarrass him in front of everyone? Ragay couldn't let it slide. With his pride wounded, he called up his friends and made a decision. He was going to find Mahmoud and teach him a lesson. At 2 a.m., Raga and his friends gathered outside Mahmoud's house. They waited in the darkness, hoping to catch Mahmoud off guard. But when no response came from inside the house, Ragay's frustration turned into rage. The plan to confront Mahmoud failed, but Ragay wasn't going to give up. He needed to make Mahmoud pay for daring to challenge him. Raga's thoughts grew darker. If he couldn't intimidate Mahmoud with a direct confrontation, he would do something even worse. The group prepared themselves, gathering pepper spray and pocket knives, intending to make Mahmoud regret ever speaking out. All of this chaos, all this preparation, was sparked by a simple post on social media. Raga, still seething, recorded a voice message and sent it to Mahmoud. "I'm going to kill you," he threatened, "and anyone who gets in my way will meet the same fate." The message was chilling, and Mahmoud had no idea how far Raga was willing to go. 2 days later, Raga spotted Mahmoud spending time with his friends near a local hangout. Still filled with rage and humiliation, he decided to act. Alongside a couple of his close associates, he plotted an ambush. As Mahmoud and his friends laughed and chatted unaware, the attack began. One of Raga's friends grabbed Mahmoud from behind, while another sprayed pepper spray directly into the faces of Mahmoud's friends, blinding and disabling them. In the chaos, Raga charged at Mahmoud, punching and kicking him repeatedly with brutal force. Mahmoud, caught off guard and outnumbered, tried to defend himself, but he was overwhelmed. Then, in a moment of savage violence, Raga pulled out a pocket knife. He stabbed Mahmoud repeatedly, mercilessly, until the young man collapsed to the ground, covered in blood and struggling for breath. Without any remorse or hesitation, Raga and his crew fled the scene, leaving Mahmoud critically injured and unconscious. People from nearby stores and homes rushed out after hearing the commotion. Some immediately recognized Mahmoud and called for help. Others tried to stop the bleeding as best they could. They rushed him to the hospital. News quickly reached Mahmoud's father, who was at work when he received the call that no parent ever wants to hear. Without a word, he dropped everything and rushed to the hospital, his heart racing, his thoughts filled with fear. When he arrived, doctors were already working tirelessly to save his son's life, but despite their efforts, the wounds were too severe. A few hours later, the doctors delivered the heartbreaking news. Mahmoud had succumbed to his injuries. He was pronounced dead in the hospital that same evening. The death of Mahmoud, a young man remembered by his community as respectful, intelligent, and courageous, sent shockwaves through the neighborhood. He had stood up for what was right, and in doing so, paid the ultimate price. Word of the incident spread fast. CCTV footage from surrounding buildings began circulating online, clearly showing the brutal attack. People across the country were horrified by the senseless killing of a defenseless teenager. Hashtags demanding justice for Mahmoud trended on social media. Pressure on law enforcement mounted. The public outcry forced the authorities to act swiftly. The police treated the case as a top priority, launching an intensive manhunt for Raga and his accomplices. It didn't take long. Raga and his crew were caught and brought into custody. Following a thorough investigation and after reviewing the evidence, the suspects were charged with premeditated murder, a crime that usually carries the death penalty. However, since Raga and his accomplices were underage, the court sentenced them each to 15 years in prison, the maximum penalty allowed under juvenile criminal law. The sentencing did little to ease the sorrow that had gripped the community. At Mahmoud's funeral, hundreds gathered to pay their respects. People from every corner of the country came, many of whom had never met Mahmoud, but were touched by his courage and deeply saddened by his unjust death. His family stood beside his grave, broken but proud of the son they had raised. He died not because he was reckless, but because he stood up for someone who was vulnerable. He spoke out against abuse. He defended the dignity of another human being. He became a symbol of bravery, a martyr for justice, and a reminder that standing up to cruelty, even when no one else dares to, is the noblest act a person can make. May he rest in peace. Thanks for watching. Feel free to share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it for more content like this. Hope you have a great day, and I'll see you again soon.